Welcome. Y'all know I like to play a video game every once in a while here called Neverwinter, and it's all based on mythology, which is pretty neat. Almost everything that they show in the game is based on some mythological aspect. Quite a bit of times they show astrotheological connections, a lot of the ancient symbology and things like that. It's actually all built into those Dungeons and Dragons types games or things that you know like Conan the Barbarian and stuff. This one right here is pretty neat. It's different. It's called Spelljammer. It's a different set of modules that Dungeons and Dragons came out that took you off this planet, and it had spaceships, really making a pun on words, ships that went into space. I'm in space here, guys. There's somebody that looks, I guess, like Mercury, the planet Mercury. There's a few other planets that are around here and stuff. One of them looks a little bit like Earth, and so on. And so we're going around on the cosmic ocean here. It's kind of different. You know, Dungeons and Dragons can always just have another land that's just right over there or right over here or someplace that you didn't know about, and you can fill your land with all kinds of things. But if you want to play a long drawn out campaign type of thing, if you were to take the idea of, there's somebody that looks like Purple Pluto, if you were to take the idea that we have spaceships now, and this is a little different of an idea. There's the planet that looks like Earth that I was showing you. These are all big ballistae. It's like crossbows, but they're giant. Think of the giant crossbow they were supposed to use to kill the dragon in Lord of the Rings. Big ballistae and stuff, and each one's got this area behind it for loading up and so on. And just like the Titanic, they just don't have enough lifeboats here at all, do they, to control anything. This is a huge ship, something that's a little bit bigger than any Spanish galleon that's ever been created. And yeah, I can jump out on there if I want to and get right up to the tip and do some little idea like Titanic off the very edge or the end of it here if you want. I can get a good look back at the ship here whenever I do so. So pirates, in a lot of people's mind, of course, takes and rightfully so. Whenever you see all these movies that they've made out, of course, like Pirates of the Caribbean and so on like that, and that's where the name is all known from, really. But the people that were type of pirates goes back thousands of years before that. People want to dismiss all kinds of things, but the ancient Phoenicians used to control what was outside the Pillars of Hercules. From my understanding in research here, it's shown that they used to kill people if they went out there and they didn't fly the correct flag. It wasn't allowed. And it was something that was kind of known. And if you look at the Greeks and other people around there around this time, they weren't really going out there so much. Here's the back deck that's here. This lich type guy. This is like our main base boat. And so we've gone up here, but then we keep traveling to these asteroids and different planets, which of course they don't have a whole planet. They just have the part that you're supposed to do the fixing up in. You show up outside this place and go down or through, or a lot of times it's under some tropical planet or so on that they have. And there's seal dealers and everything that's here. And of course you can just take a teleporter post and go out to other places. But pirates, let's talk about that just a little bit here in the reality of these things that we talk about quite often on the channel here, because pirates have been going around for thousands of years, as I said before, as far as the Phoenicians. In fact, the ancient Barbary pirates and Barbarossa, which was supposed to infer barbarians and so on, but actually it just meant bearded. And the Greeks called people barbarians that didn't shave their face, although all of their guys that were the wisest of all, and Plato and all these guys, you look at them and those all do have their beard. Well, that was a showing kind of like, I guess you'd say, ring the bell for y'all here. That was kind of like showing wisdom and elderliness and so on too. So I guess they didn't like it when other people were all ages and growing beards and so on. and things along that nature, but that's what barber comes from. And there's a famous pirate named Barbarossa. And if you've seen any of the Pirates of the Caribbean stories, he's one of the main dudes that's there. Yeah, he's not the Johnny Depp guy. He's the real pirate king type of guy. And that meant Redbeard. Barbarossa. Rosa means red, like rose. And barbers. So he was Redbeard, the famous pirate. So there's a lot of things. It's not really back in ancient times where I try to concentrate most of my videos at. It's about more modern times and stuff. And there's a lot to be said about pirates and things that happened, and the people that were pirates that were hired by even other countries to end up making sure their stuff made it through, and other people they could prey on, and things of the time and the sailing of the seas. Here we're sailing on the Sea of Stars, but that was called like that in many places. I've described how the Austral Sea is the Southern Sea, but it's also the Sea of Stars, because it gives a reflection on its surface of above as a below. So it has this a mirrored effect, and you can use that. Antikythera mechanisms and people figuring out where they were. In my recent series, I talked about sacred geometry and how the people looks and appears, to all intents and purposes, that these people knew what longitude and latitude they were at too, because that's what they based their cubits on, and the size of things. Real interesting topic to go into deep. You ought to check out my series on it that's just gone through. It's a 9-parter with Randall Carlson talking about sacred geometry and connections and stuff through it. So it's pretty neat too. But pirates, where does that etymology of that word come from? Well, pyre, same as pyramid, has to do with fire. Like there's fire behind me here. And people say that the reason they put that word on that there is that it actually has something to do with the fact that whenever they ransacked you and took your stuff, they generally burnt your ship and it went down. So that might have some connection there too. Also, pyre has to do with the funeral pyres. And then again, it has to do also with fool's gold versus real gold. And a lot of things that we could go into about pirates. I thought I'd just touch upon this here. It's pretty neat. The actual lead-in story is pretty cool. These guys come through the sky and it looks like spaceships, but it's ships coming from space. And we've seen in the game before where they had this balloon hooked up to giant ships like this, and balloons were floating people around, which is a cool idea in the game too to have and stuff. But this is far beyond balloons. This is where people went on up into the sky. And in the D&D thing, they just have some magic box that has a replica of your ship that has some pieces that are corresponding to it, like a voodoo doll sitting on a plate of mercury, and that literally is what causes you to float and do things. And then you've got all these fins here, all of these sails that are sailing like a sail, a solar sail, as we think of it. And you can't see it right now, and especially if you look down, well, you can kind of see the edge of them here. If I look off the edge, you can see that there's a mast that's down there with another one on there, because there's no reason to land or drag it in the water or do whatever. Don't have to go in the water. And this main ship that we're on here, we go and attack another ship, but these are space elves. Yeah, see, in that idea, whenever the elves, like in the Lord of the Rings, whenever they left the ancient world, they actually left the ancient world. Well, where did they go to? Back to where they came from. But that would have to hook up with UFOs and aliens and things like that, and that idea. But that's some D&D concept of where they went to, because that allows you to lead it into this idea. And on these other ships too, by the way, we have moon gravity, so it's not like now where I can hop like this. For when we hop, we float. But whenever you're running around, it's not a problem. It's kind of weird that where they've dualitied it that way, and they've slowed everybody down and made them walk like on the moon. That would ruin the dungeon, so they do it that way. But then you have it to where you can jump 40 foot in the air, and you can jump 50 foot long if you want to too. So that's pretty neat, I guess, too. Anyhow, the dungeon here is pretty neat. It just involves us hitting the other ship, but whenever we go down to go through and over onto the other ship, we have to fight our way through them coming on our ship, all the way onto their ship, and then take it over and continue on from there. And it's quite a little battle that goes on with a bunch of ads, as you'd say, of normal guys, but then there's also these guys that are with them that are majors that you have to fight, and you have to take out healers and so on like that till you finally get around to the main boss. You have to fight a main boss all the way down to like 20%, and then you stop and you wait for the ads to come again, and whenever they do again, you try to mow them over, and right after you do, everybody throws out all the artifacts and goes back on the boss, and we just try to melt him. And if you don't have too many dead heads and gone down really or anything like that before, it usually makes it from it. That's supposed to be Earth. There's just not enough white on it here, and there's too much green and not enough blue, and really no brown. But then again, that's really not supposed to be Earth. These are the planets that we go to on these treks that we do on this. So I just thought I'd share it with you. It's something that gives me a little bit of a break, but as you notice that at a break, I'm still constantly hooked up in this stuff with mythology, astrology, and so on. And as far as ships go, I've shown you that maritime boating at least goes back 160,000 BC. They verified this a long time ago, but it doesn't fit their narrative, so nobody ever speaks of it. But there are Aegean islands that even at the lowest that the Mediterranean was at, were still 30 miles out, unseeable islands that these people went to. And if it was a one-time thing, or somehow it was a whole family that got caught on a raft and did this type of thing, that would be something. But they know that these people had gone there and back and lived in different families and so on doing it. Artifacts through time. One of the islands there shows Neanderthals even were on the island at one time. So our Neanderthal cross, because there's Mousterian toolkit stuff and things like that that would give you the indication that that is so. There's even a skull that looks kind of slightly crossed. Well, there's a shooting star. So maritime boating goes back much, much older than people give credit for. They try to come across that they didn't have anything. Oh, one thing else I kind of can mention, and you know, Sumerians used to have coracles. That's what the ark that they made with Utnapishtim and the Sumerian story that the Bible one comes from. That's what they had, was a coracle. It's a round boat. And there have been round boats made with seal skins and so on like that too, but it's a round boat known as a coracle. It's kind of different than everybody else's boat, which looks more like a canoe, or the ones behind me here. One strange connection. The only two places that were known to constantly have coracles from the Wayback Machine are Sumerians and the ancient Irish and the people of the islands of Britain here. They had ancient coracles, so did the Sumerians. Of course, in our mind, we're made to think that there weren't people on boats going around doing things, following the shoreline, and they surely didn't know how to follow the stars, whenever they surely did. Even the Phoenicians, when we don't give credit for it, did. Did you know that the pole star that we have today, for most of recorded history, was called the Phoenician star? Because the Phoenicians were known to be super sailors and boating, and they realized that they used that to make their navigational lines that they went on. Sometimes, quite often, cutting right across the Mediterranean. That blows people away whenever you think of them doing it over to Italy or Sicily or someplace and back to North Africa and zigzagging through. And they had routes built to where whenever they went to here, they sold off what they just got from the last guys to get the new thing, and then go to the new guys that wanted the thing they just got from so-and-so, and zigzag back and forth, and made that trade network really work well. But a lot of people don't know that they had all the way out the Pillars of Hercules, but the ancient site of Cadiz is an ancient Phoenician settling point or starting point. There are other places that are up across the coast that were from there. In fact, Cartagena is actually the other name for Carthage, which Carthage is known from the place in North Africa that had the little inlet harbor that's so cool that even is pretty much intact still to this day. It's pretty neat. We could go on, but that's probably enough to go on this boating type of thing. I know there was something I was thinking of before I even got this started that I wanted to throw in there that I forgot about. That's okay, it'll come up soon. Let me know what y'all think about pirates and so on down below. Onward to our next destination. Peace.